The number of ships involved on June 6th is stupefying to the imagination. 6,483 vessels were to cross the Channel, so large a fleet that had Calais been chosen, there was not enough sea room for such a fleet where the Channel was at its narrowest. The fleet included 4,000 landing craft and hundreds of specially adapted transport ships and stretched from horizon to horizon in every direction. 7 battleships, 23 cruisers, and more than 100 destroyers accompanied the troop transports. On D-Day, these ships engaged the German coastal guns. Germany had but 4 destroyers and 39 motor torpedo boats. Germany's plans to resist invasion were no less detailed. Allied troops were to be met on the beaches by a formidable line of bunkers and coastal guns, the Atlantic Wall. The defenses were organized by Erwin Rommel. He intended any invader to be pinned down on the landing beaches by what were called the static divisions manning the forts, and then hit by a mobile reserve of panzer forces held inland. The Germans stripped the French Maginot Line to build the Atlantic Wall. They laid millions of mines and devised cunning traps and obstacles for landing craft and tanks. The destruction of the coastal defenses by the warships needed daylight. The landing craft needed low water, early in the morning, and the airborne attacks to be made at night needed the full moon. This narrowed the date for D-Day to the 5th, 6th, or 7th of June. Bad weather on the 5th caused the attack to be put back 24 hours. The first forces to land in France did not storm ashore from landing craft. Rather, they arrived in the early hours of the morning of the 6th. Landings were made by over 23,000 parachute and glider troops. The airborne landings were made on the flanks of the invasion zone to protect the beaches from counterattack, whilst the seaborne forces established a bridgehead. The ground forces were delivered to 5 landing beaches. In the east, 2 areas, codenamed Utah and Omaha, were the responsibility of the American forces. The experience of fighting on the 2 beaches was very different. On Utah Beach in the far west, the American forces met perhaps the weakest of German troops. 3 battalions of infantry defending the beaches surrendered without firing barely a shot. The Utah casualties of 197 were the lowest of any on the day of the invasion, in comparison to the 23,000 who came safely ashore. In contrast, the U.S. forces landing on Omaha underwent the very worst of ordeals endured by any troops on June 6th. The U.S. 1st Division came ashore to be met by perhaps the very best troops that the Germans had stationed on the coast. The American soldiers landed on beaches overlooked by cliffs, beaches onto which the Germans were able to direct murderous artillery fire. At Omaha, the swimming tanks were launched too soon, and many foundered in heavy seas. Without the support of these tanks, the infantry on the beach was vulnerable to German infantry in fortified positions. Omaha Beach has been called a disaster and portrayed in fiction as hell. Yet, despite 2,000 deaths on the first day, 34,000 came ashore. British forces attacked to the east on beaches codenamed Gold and Sword. On Juno Beach, the invaders were Canadian. On all 3 landing zones, the German defenders were not the best and were thinly spread. On Sword and Juno, the landings were made easily against little opposition.